Ladies and gentlemen, I am Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It is July 22nd, 2022, and this is your daily Ukraine update, and we are going to be asking, has the Russian offensive stopped before it ever started? Let's get into it. So, first and foremost, the major updates to the map. There's not many, right? We are going to advance 2 days forward, as we've talked about, the incredibly quite strategic zone as the Russians attempt to push towards Bakhmut. They've actually assigned a senior commander whose only job is to seize this city. It's a very small area for a very senior commander, but it reflects the fact that Russia is committed to seeing this Bakhmut and Seversk taken. So, what do we expect to see? Well, we want to see, we don't want to see much movement in the front lines, but we know that Russia has been trying to secure the entirety of this reservoir, of course, because having troops, you can't really advance towards Bakhmut with Ukrainian forces on three sides, right? That's just not going to be feasible for any sort of advance, especially to a defended urban target like Bakhmut. So Russia needs to seize the entirety of this reservoir, including the power plant on the northwest side, excuse me. Well, in Ukraine, of course, has been giving them fits as they try to do so. But as you can see from today, as we advance through, Russia has made no meaningful gains here, despite being on offense, trying to push the Ukrainian forces off of this location. The only gains that we've seen from Russia are right here, a small village, so small that it doesn't even really appear to be named. It's more of like a named street. Steryavivka has been seized, and Ukrainian forces have had to, withdraw to some extent to this Bakhmutsky. But it's not really that strategic an advance, because as we talked about, this doesn't really put them closer to Bakhmut. Again, if they have designs on swallowing it in a cauldron, I guess they would have to advance along this line, but this is a tough axis to advance along, and frankly, all this advance does is put them in line with their previous advances towards Bakhmut. So again, I really think you're seeing the situation where unless they can close this gap, they may put themselves in a cauldron of their own making if they get too extended. In Seversk, of course, we know that the big holdout for Russia remains the Ukrainian forces in Erovka, and while there's some significant attacks and fighting in that area, there isn't really been any measurable progress. What's even more interesting is what this all means. And, IWI's assessment, or ISW's assessment, argues that this is actually reflective of Russia's inability and potential logistical and personnel issues starting to catch up to them. Of course, Ukrainian HIMARS have done quite a good job on their own of attacking Russian backfield targets, especially big ammo dumps, reserve areas, any target that's big and static and sort of in the backfield supporting the front lines. That has done a lot of damage. Russian forces, of course, have a lot of Soviet-era weapons, but 70-year-old weapons are going to perform like 70-year-old weapons, just like a 70-year-old car. There are some captured Russian troops that are reporting, again, take it with a huge grain of salt, but some captured Russian troops are reporting that 70-year-old Soviet equipment is starting to perform like, 70-year-old artillery, failing, having barrels that need to be replaced at a much greater schedule, artillery whose accuracy becomes compromised over time based on a disproportionate wear on the barrels, right? When they're fresh off the lines, the barrels had an expected shelf life of, several tens of thousands of rounds, and they're reaching that limit a bit earlier than expected. Again, there's one thing we know, it's that individual captured Russian troops are not known for being well informed about the larger strategic situation, right? When the war started, the troops thought in many cases that they were on a training exercise. So I wouldn't say exactly that, that is a decisive piece of information, but the fact that the headline here is that Russian forces, their operational tempo is not markedly different during the official operational pause, which says that either there's still more preparation needed to be done, but it's sort of embarrassing, or that there's some, it's also possible that this is some sort of deception operation where the Russians are telling the Ukrainians, hey, we're doing an operational pause, but of course you're not going to tell the enemy when you're going to resume attacking. Though the idea would be to not announce the end to the operational pause. You would just find out the operational pause is over from the, rocket attacks or, line of tanks charging at you. So it may be a case that we may start to see some degradation in Russian combat capabilities, and therefore possibly a slowing of the battle and maybe even some territorial reversals. Ukraine's intelligence director, again, publicly releasing, so big grain of salt, speculate that Russian troops have burned up about half of Russia's reserve of high precision missiles, right? These are smart weapons. So, of course, without these, it's going to be very hard for Russia to, one, backfill high-tech technologies, but it also means that Russia's ability to hit targets of strategic value behind the front lines is going to be limited. You need precision-guided munitions to do that. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. As you can see, I'm on the road, but thanks, as always, to the Patreons. If you want some combat breakdowns and combat videos that are a little too spicy for YouTube, become a member of the Patreon. Thanks, as always, to the Lieutenant tier patrons, and I'll see you guys in the next video.